gonna go ahead and get started now. If you had the chance to see it, it's great, but if not, I'll just point some attention to it. In the chat, I did post an answer to a common question that's asked during this workshop, which is what is a DOI? And you can take your time to read that. I also included what a URL is because those are also at times used in the APA citations. So we'll go through that and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end as well for any other questions that might come up. But I do know that this question mostly comes up, so I did want to just post that there before we got started. So again, thank you for being here. My name is Anaya. I am an academic advisor as well as an instructor, and I'm going to be just giving you guys some insight on APA writing style today. So again, thank you for joining, and let's go ahead and get started. So on the agenda for today, we're going to be going over the APA 7th edition template. We're also going to discuss some in-text citations and what that would look like. We're going to go over the reference page and, of course, what that would look like when you're doing APA citation. And we'll also have that question and answer session at the end. So before we get into it, since our first topic is APA, that template, I'm going to go ahead and share that template with you guys in the chat just so you can have it for easy access. So just give me one moment so I can go ahead and do that for you. Just bear with me one moment. All right, so I'll share the link to that, and then you guys can let me know if you're able to access based on the link that I put in there. And if not, then I'll share it a different way. All right, so I did go ahead and share that template, the link to it, and you can just put it in the chat if you have trouble accessing it, and then I'll come back to it at the end so you guys can have that. And we're also going to go over how you can find it on your end through Blackboard. All right. So for the 7th edition template, before you start writing your APA 7th edition paper, you want to make sure that you download a copy of the template from your class in Blackboard. So if you don't use the template, then you'll have to set all of the things that are preset in the template already. So you'll have to change the margins, number the pages, and you'll have to do this in a very specific manner so that it does has APA format. So I definitely recommend utilizing that template. Again, see if you can access it from what I sent in the chat. If not, we're going to go over how you can find it in Blackboard. The template has 3 parts. It has the title page, the body and reference page, And those are three. So the title page, the body pages, and the reference page. So here is an image that displays how you can access the template in Blackboard. So if you are in your course in Blackboard, on the left-hand side, you'll see an option that says something along the lines of APA 7th edition or APA help. You can click on that, and then it'll open up this page here, what you're seeing on the right. And it's usually in blue, but it says title page template or APA template docs. You'll want to click on that, and then it'll download to your computer. So once it downloads to your computer, you can open it up, and I would recommend saving it to your desktop or to another folder on your computer where you can access it pretty easily so you don't lose it, because you'll need to use it likely for more than one of your classes. So you definitely want to save that. So you'll see here on the right-hand side, there is an image with a rectangle around where it says enable editing. So if you open up the APA 7th edition template on your computer, this is what's going to come up, because you have to make it so that you can make changes. So you'll click on enable editing, and then you'll be able to add in any information that is necessary for writing your paper. So for example, on the title page, it will ask you to include the title of your paper. So you would just highlight that bold area, and you would change the information to whatever your paper title is. Then where it says first name and last name, of course, you don't want to leave it that way. You'll change it to say your first name and your last name. So I see we have Rosa on here. So Rosa, when you're doing your APA template, you'll just change first name and last name to Rosa Snyder, and then you'll adjust all of that other information as necessary. So in-text citations, they might seem a little challenging, but they're not as hard as they seem. The two most important things that you want to remember are the author's last name and the year of publication. Of course, there are some exceptions to this. So when there is no author, you want to use the publication or the organization. And when there's no year of publication, you can use ND for no date. And if it's direct quote, you must use a page number if it is available. So here are a couple examples of what an in-text citation can look like. There are a few different ways to do it, as we mentioned on the previous slide. So when there is one author, this is what your citation would look like. You'll see at the end of the sentence that starts with heavy social media use, there is a parentheses, so it's an opening parentheses, and it says Aspalash. So that's the author's last name. Then there's a comma, and then there is the year of the publication, which is 2019. Then the parentheses is a closing parentheses, and the period is on the outside of that. So in the second example here, you'll see that there's no specific author at the citation here. It is more like an organization. So instead of having an author here, it's the World Health Organization. And then you'll also see that the article here was published in 2018. Now, in this final example here, you'll see that there is an organization, however, there's no date. So it has the American Psychological Association, right? So it's not a specific author, but it is an organization. And then there's ND because there's no date there. So some other examples of in-text citations that you might want to consider using in your papers are this first example here where the names of the authors are included and they're embedded in the sentence. So instead of including it in a parentheses like you see on the previous slides where we had those other examples, here you'll see that the authors are named. So it's Gass and Veronis. And in parentheses is the date of the article or book. So it's 1984. And then the sentence continues. So the citation was put within the sentence rather than included at the end in parentheses. Then for multiple works, you'll see that each author is included. So Gast and Veronis, it's two authors, and that and signed is there in between both of them. I know there's a better word for it than and sign, but I can't think of it right now. And then you'll see the comma, and the date is 1984. And then they're separated by a semicolon for the other article or book that was used. So the other authors are Craig and Thomas in the year of 2004. Now, this is important, this final example here, because when there is a page number available, you want to make sure that you use that, right? But you only want to use a page number when there is a direct quote. So if it's available and it's a direct quote, you have to use a page number. So in this final example here, you'll see that the direct quote is put in quotations and the year and the author is also still embedded in the sentence, like in the previous example. And then you'll see here the page number is 85. So now we're going to shift gears from in-text citations to reference page entries. So if you're citing something in your paper, it must show up in your reference page and vice versa. So for example, right, if you have something, so you're doing a discussion board and you just have the references listed at the end of your discussion board, you should also have an in-text citation where you cited something, if you quoted something, or if you're paraphrasing something, that should be included in text as well. So you never want to submit something that has in-text citations but doesn't have the corresponding reference page citation, and vice versa. So you never want to submit something that includes the reference page citation and not the in-text citation. They go together, so you never want to basically have one without the other. Also keep in mind that all reference page entries must be in alphabetical order, right? So if have a author that has a last name that starts with A, kind of like my last name's Allen, right? So that would be probably one of the first authors that's included. And you also want to just keep it alphabetized with the organizations as well. So you're going to be starting at A, right? And then you're going to go all the way down to Z. So I'm sure there's resources online that can help you to make your sources in alphabetical order, but just keep in mind that they want to have them from A to Z and not just mixed up in any type of way. You also want to make sure that the reference page entries have a hanging indent, which is a reverse indent. The first line is going to be flush left and the remaining lines are going to be indented. I think this is really important. You definitely want to make sure that you heed to this in your reference page when you're creating them because it's unique. It's not like it's indenting the first line as you normally would in a paragraph, but it's indenting the second line of a citation and every line after if there's more than two lines. So I'm actually going to just pull up a brief how to create a hanging indent video, and then I'll include that here in the chat so that when you guys are doing your reference pages, you can refer to that video because it's something that I had to watch a video to do when I was in school. So I think it might be helpful for you guys as well. So just give me one moment and I'll include that video here. Alright, thank you for your patience with that. So I did go ahead and, include that how to create a hanging indent video. So please, click on that, bookmark it so you can refer back to it for later. And yes, this is now we're going to shift into discussing how a reference page citation would look when you're citing different sources. So something that is really important to note is that different sources are cited differently. So citing an article is going to look different than citing a book. And citing a social media post is going to look different than citing like a movie or something. So just keep that in mind. There is this amazing kind of how-to guide that I used from our university library that I'm happy to post towards the end if someone reminds me or if you're interested, just let me know, and, I'll go ahead and include that, but it does break down how to cite like, majority of the different sources that you might consider using in your papers, so I think it's a great resource. So when you're citing a book, you wanna make sure that you include the author, their last name, and their first name initial only. So their last name is going to be spelled out, and then there's only going to be an initial for their first name, and then there will be an initial for their middle name as well. So you never want to spell out their first and middle name, only use the initial. The publication date has to be included as well. And you also want to make sure that you include the title in italics, but make sure that you only capitalize the first word of the title and the subtitle and proper nouns. So any other word that is not the first word of the title or the first word of the subtitle or a proper noun will not be capitalized. The publisher should also be included. You want to make sure that you don't include the publisher's location. And for books retrieved online, you would include the DOI if available. Use the URL only if it will work for the readers. And for articles retrieved through a database, don't include database information or URL in the reference. So for more information, you can see this link here. But basically what that's saying is you want to include the link only if it's going to direct say your instructor is going to be reading your paper, right? So only if they're going to be able to look at that reference page and click on that link and it leads them directly to that article you're referring to because they might want to read it, just to maybe, just take a look at the article that you included. So only include that link or that DOI if it's going to lead directly to that article. Don't have it lead to the post university library and then make the professor search for the article themselves. That would be incorrect APA format. So really include it if it's going to work for you know for anyone who clicks on it. And here's an example of what that might look like. So you'll see here that the author's last name is Post. Their first name starts with an E. You can also see that the year of publication is 1923. And the title of the article, you see it's in italics, is called Etiquette in Society and Business and Politics and at Home. The publisher is Funk and Wagnalls. And here is the URL. So ideally, if someone were to click on this, it would lead directly back to that article or book. Now, for articles, they're similar to books, but they just have some additional information. So the author is going to be included in the same way. So you'll have the last name of the author, and then you'll have the initials only for the first and the middle name. The date of publication will be included as well, but keep in mind that articles they're published at different rates than books are, right? So you want to include the year and month for monthly publications, and you want to include the year, month, and day for daily or weekly publications. Okay. So the title of the article, that's going to be pretty much the same as it is with a book. So you want to make sure that you capitalize only the first word of the title and the subtitle and proper nouns. Anything that's not a proper noun, title, or subtitle, like that first word of the title or subtitle, should not be capitalized. So the title of the publication should be in italics, as it's stated here, for the Journal of Abnormal Psychology. So that's in italics. The volume number should be included in italics, and the issue number if that's provided. Now, if there are page numbers for the articles, that should be provided as well. And this is pretty much the same blurb that we just read on the previous slide about GOIs and URLs. So only include it if it's going to work for someone who's going to click it and it's going to lead them right to that article. So here are some examples of how to cite different types of articles. So you'll see at the top, there's a journal article that was written by Blattner with the first name J and Bassi Gallupo, and their first name starts with an A. The year of publication is 2007, and the title of the article is Using Emotional Intelligence to Develop Executive Leadership and Team and Organizational Development. It's from the Consulting Psychology Journal, Practice and Research. You'll see here, all of these numbers are either the volume number, so I think 59.3, that is the volume, and it's on pages 209 to 219. And the DOI is also included here. So if you were to click that, it should lead you directly to that article. Now moving on to the next example of a magazine article. So you'll see that the individual that wrote the magazine article has the last name Sweden. Their first name would start with an E, and then their middle name starts with a G. You'll see that this is looks like the publication is out every 2 months. So it's May and June in 2006. And the title is Designing Babies, a Eugenics Race with China. It's from The Futurist, volume 40, pages 18 to 21. In a newspaper article, it follows very similar cadence. So the last name of the person who wrote this article is Dougherty. Their first name starts with an R. The date of this publication is January 11, 2006. So you'll notice that the year does come first whenever a date is included in these reference page citations. The title is Jury Convicts Man in Drunk Driving Death. It's from the Center Daily Times, and it's page 1A. All right, now shifting from articles, web pages and social media, they are cited slightly differently. So the author, if that's known, should be included. If there is no author, you want to use the title. The date of publication should be included. If there's no date, use ND. The title of the web page should be included in italics. If the publisher is known, that should be included as well. But if the publisher and the author are the same, don't include the publisher, just include the author. Maybe I need to clarify that because it sounded a little unclear to me. So if the publisher and the author are the same, you don't want to include the publisher at all. So when you first include the author's name, that's enough. You don't have to include the publisher if it's the same as the author. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, feel free to ask any questions. And the URL or the web address of the page, that should be included as well. So here are some examples of what it would look like when you're citing a web page. So Asmelash is the author, their last name, and their first name starts with an L. You'll see here that this web page was published on August 14th, 2019. The title of the article is Social Media Use May Harm Teens' Mental Health by Disrupting Positive Activities, study says. And you'll see that this is from CNN, and there is the link to where that web page can be found. Now, when there's a web page that has no author but an organization instead, you'll include the name of the organization. So for this second example here, it's written by the American Cancer Society, and the year of publication of this web page is 2019. The title is Genetics and Cancer. and the webpage is included here as well at cancer.org. And then for this last example, it's how to cite a YouTube video. So the YouTube video was published by Howcast on October 29th, 2010. And in italics, the title is How to Recognize Claustrophobia Symptoms. In brackets, you'll see that this is a video. It's on YouTube. And here is the link as well. All right, so that just about sums up how you can go about citing an APA format using in-text citations as well as reference-based citations and that template that you can find in your classes. Does anyone have any questions that they might want to ask related to this topic? Please feel free to raise your hand or put your question in the chat, and I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. All right, I'm going to give you guys just a moment to think of your questions, and I'll include the Writing Center website so that you can access some of those resources I mentioned earlier. All right, so I did include those APA resources. I'm not seeing that anyone put any questions in the chat. I'm also not seeing that anyone has raised their hand. So I hope that you guys did retain or get some good information about APA format. But that will conclude this workshop. If you have any other questions regarding your classes, I'm going to include the advising line in the chat as well.